then you make a pitch and why you should work for him.
Yeah. All right. Good. All right. Well, hey, first of all, I want to thank all of you for letting me to jump into the class here and not bolting out the door, except I saw a couple people get their grades and go. And so, yeah, just want to thank you because I know that as the school year gets to an end, you want more time with Roger. And here I am taking up half hour of the class. So we'll try to get through it. And we'll see where the discussion goes. And we'll go from there. So first of all, HouseCallPro is the company I founded. My name is Adam Perry Pelletier. When I went through Roger's class, it was Pelletier. I have a strong-willed wife who demanded that we form an entirely new tribe. So now I get this long hyphenated name that is a real mouthful. I'm CTO and co-founder at HouseCallPro. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get down. And I was a graduate student of SDSU, and for the first time I think in ever, I got my nice alumni shirt with me. My shirt got wet on the way over here, and I thought it was a good time to get it. But I also want to tie in the talk with my belief that I am a super strong believer in OO specifically, but also fundamental CS topics, computer science topics. And I think that that's super duper important. If I leave you guys with anything, OO rules. It's still unbelievable. I know there's a whole bunch of new fads coming through, but when you dig deeper and deeper, they really, really have their roots in OO. So we'll start. So HouseCallPro. So that's the company I founded. Founded it with 4 other people. That I met at Qualcomm. So I worked at Qualcomm in the mid 2000s. And we're actually a software system used by home service professionals to run their companies. And so think about it: plumbers, electrician, handyman. And one of the first things you're going to say is, "Oh my God, you need software to run one of those business." Absolutely. In fact, one of the reasons why good software did not exist in that space is because all of these workers and business owners and entrepreneurs were mobile, and they didn't have mobile systems to be able to run their businesses out in the field. So where everything got cobbled together for brick and mortar stores and point of sale systems and big companies like Qualcomm and Google and Facebook, this industry was really, really left behind. However, it's actually really interesting because they have all the same problems as a big company, but they also have a whole bunch more. They have routing problems and dispatching problems. And so it turns out it's been an awesome space to work in from a theoretical computer science perspective. We are the operating system for how work gets done in the real world, mobile work, right? So if you order a service through Yelp right now, about 90% of the time, if it's like a plumber, electrician, or handyman, carpet cleaner, even a maid, about 90% of the time, that actually is our system in the background that's fulfilling that. So yeah, we have to write integrations with Yelp and eventually with Google and Facebook as well. Interestingly, one of the big changes since the last time I spoke last year is we're now probably one of the largest, best funded and fastest growing startups in San Diego. And the reason why that's important to you guys is because we are hiring. We're hiring interns, we're hiring full-time people. So one of my end goals is hopefully I've impressed upon you guys enough about the importance of what we're doing that hopefully we can get some of you to apply to one of our programs. We're a super fun place for software engineers to work, but a little bit more on that later. But first I want to congratulate you on your progress so far. How many grad students here? So almost everybody grad students. And so grad students are, number one, you've already been through a huge portion of your academic career. And number two, if you're sitting here, you either got 1 or 2 years left on your program. And so you're really, really far along. And I want to congratulate you on your progress so far, because I know it's hard, right? I can remember going through college and all my buddies who weren't in computer science or mathematics were out partying, having fun. And here you guys are slogging through the traveling salesman problem and trying to figure out a way to make it actually run faster than it is possible, which is tough. All right, so the skills you've learned so far are the fundamentals, the algorithms, the data structures, the OOP, hopefully refactoring. You guys still touch upon refactoring? Yeah, refactoring is key. Refactoring, I would say that and OO were the things that really, really jump-started my career. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And I know now that you can start to throw in big data, AI, and machine learning. And those are like the fundamentals. And like, if I can impress upon you guys one thing, um, nail those fundamentals, right? Pick a subset of them and really, really understand. I know functional programming, I probably should have put that in there. Functional programming starting to make a big move and people are starting to do really awesome things in it. But I can tell you, let me go back and tell you a little story. I don't know if Roger even remembers this, but um, I was interesting because I came out of an economics background and I had a whole bunch of prerequisites that I was trying to take. Actually, to be honest with you, I was trying to get out of taking them or take them as fast as possible and get into the big classes, the grad classes. And one of them was 3D programming. I really, really loved it. And I can't remember the name of the professor. He's actually was at the San Diego Supercomputer Center. He's a really nice guy, awesome teacher. And it just so happened his grade was very homework heavy. So if you did well on the homework, you're probably going to get like at worst a B plus. And if you did really well on the homework, you really had to shoot yourself in the foot in the final to get anything less than like an A minus. Learned a lot, but it was interesting is every single time I got a homework assignment, I realized that I was reinventing the wheel, right? And when I started sitting there thinking about it, and this is right when I was taking OO with Roger, probably this class or the equivalent back in the day, is I said, oh man, if I can just make this one class that's like a 3D renderable or a 3D object, and if I can just get that thing to like load a dot in 3D space and make sure that there's this I got this camera object and I've got this, and all these things in OpenGL are primitive C functions and C structures. And every single time I cracked open the editor, it's like, oh, rewrite all this code. Okay, hand this assignment in. Okay, new assignment, cut and paste a whole bunch of code in, start over. And it didn't take me too long before I was like, okay, I want to make this object called a 3D renderable. And basically it's going to do scale, transform, rotate. I can't remember what primitive, that's probably all three. And oh, by the way, it could take a list of vertices and render those. And I made this base class. And then at the same time, I went to the professor and I showed Roger, and I don't know if Roger remembers, but Roger's like, yeah, it's probably going to work. I think it's going to work. We squinted at it. And it's like going to make everything easy because what it did is it became the base class that you could then plug in all the other stuff. If you wanted to, so assignment number 2 was put what is it when you drape a fabric over a 3D thing, right? Applying sunlight and reflections over the 3D. So every single assignment, instead of becoming rewrite the whole world, just became one function. So I went to the professor. I was like, "Hey, Mike Bailey, that's his name, right?" I was like, Mike, hey, look, if I can do this, can I get a little bit ahead? I sort of played him a little bit. I was like, if I can get a little bit ahead, can you just, get me all the homework assignments? And sure enough, he gave me all the homework assignments. And I think I wrote about 8 functions, about 40 lines of code, and all of them worked. And everybody else was like, oh my God, this is impossible. This is hard. How'd you get this done? And it wasn't. All I did is write a really, really good OOP base class that I could just reuse for all the assignments, right? So that is where like I got hooked, like literally that class. And then refactoring came along. So all my career before HouseCallPro was all in project recovery. So believe it or not, because of the weird career path I chose coming out of economics, I was a pro sailor, right? I wasn't like on the radar screen of Microsoft at the time, which was like the big hiring thing. And Roger made it this interesting thing. He's like, hey, 80% of software projects fail. I was like, oh man, I'll bet you the people who work for those projects don't want them to fail. And I'll bet you if I could figure out how to not make them fail, then it'd be like a great way to jumpstart my career. And at the time, Agile was coming up. A guy named Kent Beck, do we still talk about Kent Beck a lot? Kent Beck was basically creating this idea of extreme programming and pair programming, but at its core, it was building unbelievable object-oriented constructs and cleaning them up relentlessly using refactoring and unit testing. And seriously, like those concepts in a nutshell is like how my career got to where it was, where I could actually eventually go out and found my own company, right? Now the technologies, Android, iOS, React, Redux, God, right? Right now we're hiring tons of React and Redux engineers, and I love it. It's actually kind of a fun tool, but it's just a technology. And I know from the CTO perspective, we're going to rewrite the whole entire site in React and Redux. And as soon as we get done, there's going to be some new bright, shiny technology right here on the wall that probably one of you guys or someone like you is going to bring to my attention. And I'm going to be like, all right, guys, start rewriting it, right? It feels like in the Northeast, bridges over salt water. You start painting them on one side, and after 2 years of effort, you painted the whole bridge, and you just drive all the painting trucks back to the front because the salt water's eroded them and they're all rusty. Sort of like that. So that's technologies, but the underlying OOP, the refactoring, that stuff that it just doesn't go away, right? Roger was showing me a couple of technologies that you may be bringing up. The Android, what is it? The Android component architecture. I guarantee I'm going to crack it open and I'm going to be like, that's this pattern from 1987, and that's this pattern from 1983, and that's Smalltalk MVC rewritten for the 542nd time. So it's all good, right? But really, right here, like, get that stuff and nail it because it just never, ever, ever goes away. So you've learned all these things, but what I really want to tell you, what you've really learned is you've learned the swing, and I'm going to try to get this Mjolnir, right, which is Thor's hammer. And like, this is a concept that we get the whole company pretty fired up on. And so as you guys have been watching all your buddies going out and partying and beer drinking while you suffer through, John Donald, is he still teaching algorithms here? No, he retired years ago, probably, right? Super hard test. And I can remember after a test with John Donald, I'd be like, hey, Dr. Donald, that question was really hard. He's like, yeah, he's like, the good thing is I never have to grade that one because no one ever gets it, and I'm not sure I could grade it anyway, right? It's like, oh man, why are you doing that, right? All my friends are out having fun right now, and you actually let me sit in that chair and struggle through that. But what I really want to tell you is like software and being a software engineer is like damn near the closest thing that we have to superpowers. Like Thor's hammer, you swing it and it's just magic. I'll give you an example right here. What am I doing? I'm in front of you guys as an audience trying to, convince you that your career path is awesome. Hopefully that you come and try out for one of our positions. But the system that I wrote in the background is cranking away right now. We've probably completed 2,000 jobs in the course of maybe not my speech, but by the time this class is done, 1,000 or 2,000 jobs will have flown through the system. Pros will have gotten dispatched. They'll knocked on people's doors, unclogged the sink, got paid, and sent a thank you letter, right? And like, here I am. I'm right here talking to you. I'm not doing any of that. And there's no other industry that I know of that's like that, right? Even a heart surgeon, right? A heart surgeon has a massively, unbelievably valuable service. But let me tell you, he's going to operate on every heart that he actually operates on, right? We don't, right? We write this software and it goes out in the wild and hopefully does magic things. So this should be like your motivation. And believe it or not, that's our real Thor's hammer. And it's an award that we give out. It usually lives in the engineering team, and I take a lot of pride at keeping it there in the engineering team. But basically, Thor's hammer gets awarded to anybody or any group at the company that just does something unbelievably awesome, right? And so, no kidding, that's our Thor's hammer. And it came out of me and the CEO being like, the software stuff's really cool. And I was like, yeah, I think, it's like superpowers. He's like, oh, it's like Thor's hammer, that Thor hammer guy. So literally, we have this at work. Our team currently holds it down, and I can't wait to relinquish it to some other team at the company that's done something amazing. But you don't believe me, you don't believe me yet. Still don't believe me that you have superpowers. I don't know if you guys saw this yesterday, but I thought it was amazing. Any of you guys track SpaceX and how they are sending rockets up and the rockets actually land down? Most of it's, obviously the hardware is crazy and awesome, but the software is insane, right? So yesterday, for the first time in like 40 launches, they sent a rocket up. The rocket was totally successful. And then when it's coming down, it actually had a hardware failure, right? And so literally, if you guys go stream this, you can see the thing spiraling out of control until it does this landing in the water, right? It didn't do a successful landing, but it landed mostly upright. It landed totally soft. And this was after you could see the guidance system shooting the rocket all over the place like crazy to try to get the thing stable and land upright. And they did land upright. And then Elon Musk says, oh, it's actually a really good landing. And everyone's like, no, it wasn't. It landed in the water. He's like, no. He's like, all of our rockets come down on the coast. And instead of where they're supposed to land right here in this circle, we aim for this patch of water out in the middle of nowhere in case we don't think we can land it safely. And then at the last minute, some, quarter mile or mile up in the air, we basically do a final check and we say it's all good. And we reposition the rocket and land it right in the center of the landing pad. He said, we didn't do that yesterday. So the rocket landed right where it was supposed to land, even after hardware, the hardware guys that you compete with, even after they failed, right? The software did what it was supposed to do. So there used to be this concept that one of the VCs that we talk with, you guys have probably heard this, it's software is eating the world. So for a little while there, hardware was eating the world. You had Sonos speakers and Fitbits and all other sorts of startups that were doing hardware-oriented stuff. Usually they'd start by programming some Arduino chip. Well, it turns out that software is still eating in the world, and software saved the day when the hardware guys couldn't deliver yesterday. So really, really, really believe that like in what you're doing is really changeative and transformative. And like I've seen it like, all throughout my career and certainly in the last 5 years, the impact that a software engineer has is just unbelievable. So you should really, really believe in what you're learning. You should keep pushing, right? Really, really finish out your academic career strongly, and learn some amazing stuff. So closing thoughts, we'll spend a little bit of time here on this page. I just want to make sure I'm not totally eating into Roger's time. But there's a couple things that were really important in my career. And again, because I came from this, it wasn't like your traditional software background. I had to take this alternative route. And when I took the alternative route, looking back on it, there were some amazing things. So the first thing is learn before you earn, right? First you want to learn, then you want to earn, right? And no, I'm not saying that just because I want to hire you cheaply at HouseCallPro. I legitimately mean it, right? When I came out, as Roger remembers, as soon as I graduated, the first thing we did is we got back together and we made a group called SD Small Talkers, which was a small talk group. Small Talk's coming back for the 10th time, by the way. Pharaoh is doing some really amazing stuff. And we built this group where we just get together and hack on stuff, endlessly to see if we could come up with cool solutions to problems that probably no one had, but it was still super, super fun. And then I would take those things right in to work and be like, hey, we're gonna go this route. So that's really, really super important. Fundamentals over technologies. The fundamentals, I haven't seen them change. Like once OO really cemented this concept of how an application should be partitioned and how different aspects should like partake in the conversation in terms of how they interact in a software system, it's still roughly all the same. Before OO, there's just these big bunch of files where people would put a bunch of functionality. None of it was easy to comprehend. Certainly none of it was that reusable, although reusability is not your number one goal. And then OO came along, and there were these practitioners that pushed it really far. And for the first time, you could reason about complex things. And even as a program got bigger and bigger and bigger, your ability to reason about any given part of it basically stayed constant. But then you do have to get good at learning. That should not be fundamentals. It should be learning technologies, right? But again, with a good background, almost everything you see in these technologies that come out is just a recasting of something that is fundamental, that hopefully you've really, really nailed. OO is still my favorite fundamental. The world is definitely sort of moving away. OO really, really ruled the roost when we had these big monolithic desktop applications. It was unbeatable in that situation. Now that everything is a web app and you get, some requests coming in from the web, it hits the server does a little bit of mucking, it hands it off to the database gets it back, reformats it, sends it back out to the clients. Those processes do tend pretty well, lend themselves well to functional solutions. And so that's why you see a huge ramp up in functional programming languages. But I will tell you, they are no silver bullet, right? I love Rich Hickey. He's the guy that wrote Clojure. He's got some amazing talks on the web that you guys should check out. But let me tell you, you open up a well-constructed Clojure application and try to understand what's going on, and it can be a challenge, right? So there's no silver bullet, right? And he didn't write the stuff. His stuff's really good, but I've seen big monolithic back and forth applications written in Clojure that are a challenge to understand. In other words, the language ain't going to help you. The paradigm ain't going to help you. It's the fundamentals that will win the day. Refactoring closely followed by refactoring is probably my number two. I would say that the beginning part of my career was 100% based on my ability to refactor. And so I worked at a company that will remain nameless and faceless. But I deleted about 50,000 lines of code from the code baseline while still being one of the top engineers in terms of delivering functionality. And of course, they were going to cut my pay. And the reason is believe it or not, back in the day, you actually got paid by like your lines of code productivity. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to quit then. And they were like, no, you can't quit. I was like, well, but you're cutting my pay. Yes, that's because I, didn't write as many lines of code you did. So evidently I've been negatively productive. So you shouldn't care that I'm about ready to walk out the door. So it's interesting, but times have changed. Now, most measures, and certainly any measure at any good company that you'd want to work for, no one will ever count lines of code. If anything, they'll praise you for writing less of it, so long as you don't write a whole entire program on one line and call it good, because that's a mess too. You'll hear cloud this, cloud that, serverless. It's all cool, but it's all technologies. There's definitely like going to be a time and a place where all this comes together, but half the world's not even migrated over to cloud computing yet. And now cloud computing is instantly migrating over to serverless or Lambda programming. And I would say that great, you have to do it because it's a heck of a lot better than stacking up a bunch of Linux boxes in your closet, which, believe it or not, is how we'd launch programs like this back in the past, but still leaves a lot of pain to go around. So now on to where I wanted to start. Oh, go ahead. Yep. Yep. Yes. It's on all code reviews, peer reviews. And what we do is we measure software features as a function of size, right? It's really easy to reason about size, right? This bag is, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 times bigger than this phone. But if I were to ask any one of you right now how long I've been speaking, unless you're watching your watch, you'd be actually really, really far off, right? Some of you would say 8 minutes, others would say 32. I don't even know what the time is right now. So what we do is we stack up use cases in terms of size, and we partition those use cases out to the teams. And then we calculate what's called a velocity. And as long as the team is hitting a velocity plus or minus some band, Adam's happy, right? And as soon as I see that number decrease, I go whisper in the ear of my lieutenants, hey, Manish, by the way, half my team's from SDSU. Manish is from SDSU. Unbelievable. Hey, Manish, why do we miss? He's like, oh, man, our billing system is totally functional. It's rock solid in terms of defects and accuracy, but it's impossible to reason about. All right, let's go. And then what do? We go out and pick out the refactoring. We go whack on it for 3 or 4 days. We have hundreds of unit tests. So if I change one line improperly on that core part of the system, I'll probably break 50 of those hundreds and hundreds of unit tests. And so we whip it back into shape. And sure enough, the next iteration, I see our velocities going back up into for my particular team that is my day job, like as long as we're seeing story points closing out at like mid to high 20s, it's all good, right? So we measure it as a team, but like, you can tell when people need help, right? It's not a secret when you work as closely when we do. And we throw a lot of mentoring, right? We trust our hiring process, and I've been proven wrong for sure. But if you get through our hiring process and you're struggling at the company, that's more likely my fault than it is your fault. There's been some exceptions. It's truly been the person's fault. But we put them on teams. We see how they operate, give them a lot of training, a lot of mentoring in terms of pair programming. And then what we do is we measure team performance. We don't measure individuals, but it's pretty easy to see, how individuals are doing on the team. So you ship code to production on day one, seriously. That's like one of the things that we pride ourselves. Your day one at HouseCallPro is totally nuts. It's totally fun. It's the most untraditional onboarding process you'll ever see. You'll sit, and on day one, you'll sit down with a brand new Mac laptop, like what Roger's got, even better than mine, with all the new ports. And then we will try to install the development environment. We'll get it up and running, and we'll pick a small use case, and literally by the end of the day, that use case will be in production to customers. And by the way, that's the only way I measure things, right? People come to me, you want to see a project get screwed up? Oh, Adam, I'm like 82% done with this feature. No, no, it's real simple. If it's shipped to production and the users are using it and it's not spitting out defects left and right, it is 100% done. If it's anything less than that, it is 0% done. And so we really set the bar of get stuff into production, right? There's no partial credit. Users are using it, you get 100% value. Users aren't using it, 0% value, right? Pretty fun. But again, we've got it figured out that it's not like we're going to throw new engineers to the fire and let them struggle on stuff. You're going to write more unit tests than production code, and that's okay. The CEO will tap you on the shoulder and ask you if the gray-haired CTO's technology stack is out of date. Literally, I co-founded the company with a handful of people. The CEO literally sits in and amongst the engineers. We're a very product engineering focused company. We definitely have a huge sales team, but the CEO and the COO have a great working relationship. So the CEO runs most of the sales side, and the CEO gets to actually be one of our lead. He is essentially our lead product manager. And so if you work with us, whether you're an intern or a full-time, there'll be a time when he sits right down next to you and says, hey, what do you think about this? Can we do this? Is this something that you're familiar with? Adam says no to me. He won't do it. And so I need one of you guys to pull it into the victory line. So it's pretty cool. You will get code that gets used for something other than shipping ads to eyeballs. So fortunately, when we get users and they start running their business, they're on the system for anywhere from 6 to 10 hours a day, which is unbelievable, right? That is like some of the highest levels of engagement that you can imagine. Our customers are awesome. They're super hardworking. It is also terrifying when our system goes down. It's not like Amazon. Right now, if Amazon is down, do any of you guys care? No, not really. Not right now, because you're not looking for a book right now. You're not looking for, a pair of new headphones, right? Our system goes down and, people using our system can't get to their next job. Every phone in the company rings, right? So it's really, really awesome. But the benefit of that is, I hate to say it, but lots of software these days, and certainly all the big guys, most of their efforts in terms of software is trying to get people to look at advertisements. AI, why? Get more people looking at advertisements. Features, why? Get more ads in front of people's eyeballs. It's great until it's not, right? And so obviously at HouseCallPro, you will literally have pros that come into the company and say, you radically changed my business, right? For the better, right? And so it's a super, super empowering field to go in every day. By the same token, if you write bad software, you hear about it, right? But that's good. That's the way it should be, right? There should be a good yin and yang to the way software gets developed. So we are hiring. We're looking for, I don't know. Basically like probably hire all this class if everyone went through the interview successfully. Maybe not quite all this class, but I would love to. Certainly in the future, if we keep growing the way we would. Right. And so definitely encourage any and all of you that have an interest in working in a really, really cool environment that dovetails exactly into what you're learning right now. Please let me know. Right. And there's a couple ways you can let me know. You can take a picture. Oh, it wrapped. Take a picture of this. Or if you want, I can pass sheets around, put your emails in. What we tend to do is once I start giving talks at universities, we invite everybody back for Taco Tuesday. So you get to come on in and have some tacos and beer. Typically, as soon as the beer gets mentioned, we'll also get the Uber so that you guys don't have to worry about going in. But that's only for people who are of age. And yes, we will be checking. So on that note, if you want, is it okay if I pass out a sign-up sheet? If you guys want, we'll put each one of these in each row. So you can pass that one back there. No harm if you don't want to sign up. If you do want to learn more about what we do, we will have you in, and I'm going to be short. So why don't we have that one span these two rows, and this one span these two, and this one goes straight on back. And on that note, if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to stick around and answer. If you don't have any questions, I know Roger's got to get back to the semester status. Yeah, best strategy is number one, be authentic. Look, the best strategy is to be a great student, right? Unfortunately, believe it or not, like we don't have a huge ability to dive deeply, right? However, having said that, I don't just hire people with 3.8, 3.9 GPAs. I will say this, everything that we do is unbelievably precise in software engineering, right? And I had this awesome debate with a guy who sent me a resume, and the first letter of his last name was not capitalized. And I sent it back to him, and he lit me up, and he's like, "I can't believe you rejected my resume in 30 seconds." And I said, "Yeah, you're right." I was like, "You didn't capitalize the first letter on your last name." He's like, "Well, that's just a little tiny problem." I was like, "Dude, that's 8 characters in. You had a 1 in 8 chance of doing something right and you didn't. Now let me translate that to me. You have to write hundreds of thousands of lines of software for us that do hundreds of millions of calculations, and they have to do them perfectly. And believe me, I'm looking for people who don't make a mistake in the first 8 characters of their resume. So have a really, really clean, polished resume. Show me what you've done. If you have a high GPA, highlight it. If you don't highlight. Don't like push it down, right? I'm going to get to it, right? We're going to get to it one way or another, based on the school and the type of stuff you've done. But believe it or not, like we're pretty open. We see people succeed radically in all sorts of aspects, right? We see people come in. We hired a person 3 weeks ago who was also a career switcher who had no real fundamental software engineering, but you see this massive track record of not doing projects to convince me that they could do React or Angular or Node.js, but like she convinced me that like she actually did a lot of deep learning in the fundamental CS stuff, and it showed because like gave the problems and the algorithmic problems, and she nailed them. So it was awesome. So military people, right? They just have a different level of attention to deep detail. So if you've got that experience, let me know. Outside of that, really clear and concise. Do not write a resume that is optimized for a search engine. And don't write me a resume that's longer than my resume, right? Don't tell me every single technology from SAS to CSS to MySQL to Postgres. Just sit there and say, I've implemented a bunch of things using relational databases or NoSQL databases. Because here's the deal. I don't expect any of you coming out of school to have rewritten Twitter, right? So don't try to convince me of that, right? Just keep it very, very professional. Keep it concise. Tailor it to who you're interviewing with, right? You know where I over-index on. I over-index on OO and refactoring. So don't tell me that you can do k-means clustering in 3 lines of Python, right? Is it impressive? Yeah, it's super impressive. Do I care? Not really. So do a little bit of research on the people you're submitting your resumes to. The good thing is that we're still small enough that we look at like almost every resume on a detailed thing. And if you basically hit those bullet points, you're going to look. You're also going to get a look, by the way, I know exactly in a very, very positive, good way what comes out of this school. I'm a product of it. Most of my deputies are a product of it. And so, if it comes through San Diego State, also remember, I'm probably going to hit him up for a reference, ask your permission. But that's another thing, San Diego State, right? Highlight it. Outside of that, authentic, keep it brief, but keep it perfect, right? Because software is one of those games of attention to detail really, really matters. So other questions? Yes, we do. Yep. I wish we sponsored more of them. I wish there was, I won't say that so we can keep recording it. We can keep the recording going. Yes, we sponsor H-1B visas, and we've put people through the process before, and so that's all good. We also, if you want to do internships during the year, we can deal with CPT and OPT as well, right? Internships also a way to go. I think we brought in like 8 SDSU interns last year. 4 of them converted to full time. 5 of them converted to full time, and 2 of them would have converted to full time, but they had family obligations that pulled them up into the Bay Area. So literally, I think we were like 7 out of 8, 7 out of 9, right? And so, and the internship is awesome. We don't screw with your semesters. We recognize that you guys still have to get through school, but you'll go right into essentially the onboarding that we do with full-time engineers. So reach out for those if you guys have time. So other questions? Really? No other questions? Well, yep. hmm We just out execute them, right? You got to be fearless. Look at, like, let's be clear. That's a really good question because a lot of people, hopefully some people in here may want to actually start their own company and go the startup route. Every idea that you can possibly have has been pitched before. And what almost all investors are looking for, they've heard it, right? And I'm telling you, especially with AI, there's like 4,000 companies trying to get funding for AI right now that run the gamut, and everything just gets niche and niche and niche. You know, AI for determining what the best dog breed is given your family. It's like, oh, really? Is there a business model around that? So what comes down is it comes down to execution, and we just have to relentlessly out execute our competitors. And today we're actually doing that, right? Does that?
What would you say the features, or is it the sales team that you have
It's a relentless attention to trying to satisfy the needs of the customer without polluting the product. And what I mean by that is every one of our customer comes and says, Adam, I want a gray button down here. No, I want a green button up here. And if we do it all, it's just this mismatch of buttons. So what we do is we hear their pain, we try to understand why they're complaining and why they want some button that to us seems like not obvious. We get to the root cause, then it goes to product managers and designers, and they will formulate, here's what they're really trying to do. Here's the job they're trying to do that we're preventing them from doing, and then we'll bring it into development there, right? So it's relentless attention, and the whole entire company works as one. Like if we start missing sales goals, and it's because we're missing features, I'm going to hear about it, right? The good thing is I don't hear too much about that anymore. We're pretty feature sufficient, right? So.
guys have an analytics to show all the customers already? If I want a plumber,
Yeah.
they show up at the top.
So it's pretty funny because I'm recording this right now. I promised Roger that I would get a nice cleaned version of that. Yes, we do have a big data effort underway, and unfortunately, it's company confidential. It can't get blasted out to the internet. But if you come to talk to me about it, maybe not right here, but if you come to the office when we invite you on campus, I can whisper in your ear what our thoughts are with respect to that. Yeah, we actually have one of the largest data sets of home services, right, in the country, right? So yeah, it's obvious that we're going that way, but like the details, no, I'm on record here. So cool. How many people want to start a company? What do you want to start? Okay, yeah. How many people just want to get their hand like? So when you transition, how many people think that? Yeah, and let me phrase this and frame it. So believe it or not, as fast as we work, we also don't run people into the ground. So a lot of big companies, I won't name them, what they do is you spend all day in meetings and then they expect you to get your day job done at night. And we're the opposite of that. You'll be in maybe one 5 to 10 minute meeting a day. You'll be in 1 2 to 3 hour meeting a week. And then the rest of the time, it's relentlessly hands-on keyboards. And so what that really means is that if I worked you 100 hours, you literally would not survive it. So we actually have really, really reasonable work hours. We had this big, massive push that went out in November 1. And even given that November 1 deadline, there were only like 2 Saturdays that I asked the team to come in and push the midnight oil. Whereas, you know, anybody who's read the literature about software companies knows that, you know, there are people who've, you know, worked for 3-4 months straight and had all sorts of stuff. And the reason is because the intensity of the work during the day is so intense that like at 6 o'clock, you're just like, I can't do it anymore. Like, all right, go. you got a lot done. So, but anyway, that's what I was going to ask is that's startup type behavior as opposed to like big company type of behavior. And so, keep that in mind when you're evaluating companies. And I'm not harshing, the last time I said this, I've got a ton of friends who've made awesome careers at big companies. And certainly the variance in your income at big companies is going to be way, way more constrained. But the downside of that is you may not work on all the cool stuff all the time. You may be in meetings way more than you think. So, all right. So I think I'm out of time unless there's one last question. Yeah. Right now we have open office space. And so basically what he's getting at is there's the old school days, really, really old, 70s and 80s, you had your own office. 90s and early 2000s, you had cubicles. And then in the mid 2000s and into now, there became this theory of, oh, let's just throw everybody together in an open office space. We do have an open office space. It's mostly right now out of necessity because we're like jam full. And I see the pros and cons of it. The pro is that if you really want to know what my day job is, it is listening to people sigh and complain and get frustrated, right? That's my day job. And that's when I smoke jump in. If they're sighing and complaining, it's because someone's reading code that they can't figure out. So it's really, really awesome for that. But for people that really, really need to zone out and lock themselves away in a nice dark cubicle with a nice Yankee candle burning in the background, we're not there yet. We do have spaces where people can get away, but we're definitely super cognizant of people with different personality types. And there are times when I'll see people stressed out and I'm like, hey, just work from home today, right? You didn't hear that from me, but was that sort of what you're getting at? Or yeah, it is open. The new office space that we're looking at will have more flexibility with respect to how we organize that, and we'll accommodate that because we see the pros, but we also see the cons, right? It's not, and there's no perfect solution, right? There isn't, right? The perfect solution would be I'm sitting here and I'm pairing with Roger on something really, really hard, and he's right next to me, and then 30 seconds later, I'm like, I need a break. I hit a button, and I get this cocoon magically form around me that I can't hear anybody, right? And that just doesn't exist. So that's question one, and what was the?
Number two is back to hiring. So one problem today
Mm-hmm.
is they finally presentation, no mistake, follow your advice. It's like send it in 100 companies, right? Wait.
Oh, don't wait. Try to triangulate, right? Hit people up on LinkedIn. Try to form connections. There's almost always a way to get to me personally. And if there's not a way to get to me personally, there's certainly a way to get to someone on the team. So, that doesn't mean you should be like spamming me or spamming the company, but like there's really, really legitimate ways. We're going to have a hackathon in February. Every single engineer at HouseCallPro is going to be at that hackathon. So come and meet every single one of them, right? We're going to have, and I actually didn't even run this through yet because I didn't get to see you before and probably not after. But one of the things I do want to do is start getting professors to come in and give talks outside of the academic environment, right? Where they just come up and do basically a TED talk on new technologies, right? Go to those, right? Go to meetups. Believe it or not, the technology culture or community in San Diego is not that big. Just do awesome stuff, right? So the other thing too is on the interview, I'm not going to tell you exactly how to game our interview because we want there to be something, but remember what we're asking of you. We're asking, did you pay attention when you did data structures? Did you pay attention when you were in object-oriented programming class? Do you know how to program? Believe it or not, we interview people. I don't know how they get through the screening process. They can't program one line of code, right? So make sure you can like demonstrate what you do. Gone are the days of the crushing Google interviews where they're like, go ahead and write a program to calculate how many golf balls will fit in a 747 taking off at Denver Mile High Airport. The stuff that we're doing is I'm trying to verify. I like your resume. And if I like your resume, all you have to prove to me is that you can replicate the experiences and the capabilities that you're on your resume. So I'm not going to ask you to do quantum computing if you don't have quantum computing on your resume. Now, you put it on your resume, it's fair game, right? We'll ask you to crack open, was it Q Sharp is the new quantum computing language from Microsoft? We're not going to do that, right? We're not going to try to kick you to the ground just because we think it's fun. We're just going to try to verify that you've got the prerequisites coming out of this school to enter into industry and work with the team well to get awesome stuff done. Right. Cool. Yeah. So the last time I was here, we were at 80. We're now at 170-ish. The engineering team is in the mid 20s. And we're growing it basically as fast as we can. Oh yeah, almost every company has some, departmental breakout. So on engineering, we have a couple of small teams, but we actually reorganize those teams frequently, either to give people more exposure to different technologies. So at HouseCallPro, you'll definitely master at least 2 technologies. You have to, right? It's just par for the course. But we have some people on the team that can literally do all 5 of our technology stacks. So we move people around when there's burnout, when people have an interest. But there's also sales teams, there's operations teams, there's HR. So all the things you'd expect at a company of our stage right now. So, all right, let's call it. Do I have all these right here back? Have they been passed up? Hit there up when you go to the career pages. Please. One row did not get. Let's get this row covered. You can also take a picture of the careers page and apply. And just when you come in off the form, make sure you put somewhere in the comments of the application that SDSU talk. Interestingly, too, I see a lot of women in here in the audience. We try to have a really, really diverse culture. So right now, I think we're like 25% women. That's super important to me. Believe it or not, I'm father of 3 daughters. And so we try to we don't do anything special, but we do definitely try to build a really, really diverse group. And we recognize that engineering industry in general needs help there. And so just, throwing it out there that, we try to have an awesome group of people. Just so you guys know, women make up like 67% of the purchasing decisions in the country. Right? So let me rephrase that. It's pretty damn important that they're represented on our team from the executive suite all the way down to the engineering suite. Right? Men don't make many purchasing decisions. We're like, okay, yep, I don't want to do that, so go ahead and buy it. Right? So it's pretty important. All right, cool. Did I get the last one? Still. But anyway, I'm going to try to talk more. I think I'm going to try to talk as an AI group. I'm going to come back on campus. And again, we're going to have 2 things to look out for. We'll try to invite you all in. I'm not exactly sure how that is. So when you see the email go out, just respond. Try to pull you on into our office to talk about more stuff, meet the team. We're going to do a hackathon in January, February. We'll try to make it so it's not too close to the midterms. All right, great. We're good. Thank you for your time. I really, really appreciate it.